702.
World of Work.
Absolutely. It's the world of work. And we're looking at why is it that young people aren't seemingly climbing the corporate ladder. I'm joined by Anja van Beek, a talent and culture strategist, leadership and HR expert, and an executive coach. She has a long title. Anja, thank you so much for joining us. So, Anja, climbing the corporate ladder, I think there was a point where that was the goal. People used to dream big and work really hard to move up, to try and obtain and own the corner office. But you're saying young South Africans today, like millennials and Gen Zs, are seemingly rethinking this approach. We aren't seeing so many of them. I mean, I look around our own environments and we talk about how young people don't stick around. They job hop so much. So that seems to be a change of approach. You speak about managers as well who seem to be burnt out. So there's a lot to pick and prod at. Thank you so much for your time. Let's speak about the idea in and of itself of climbing the corporate ladder and why for the longest time that was a vision that spurred so many people on occupying that corner office, so to speak.
Yeah, good morning, Tshidi. Thank you for this warm welcome. And you're absolutely right to say that we see a trend that the younger generations are not really keen to climb the corporate ladder. And I think when you ask the question about why might it has changed, I think it's really understanding what is important for individuals. So if that was a goal a few years ago, I think it might have been of the luxury of what it is bringing or what it can unlock or the possibilities that it opens up in your life. And what we're currently seeing is that the younger generations are questioning. I don't necessarily think we need to think that they lack ambition. I think it's more about what is the responsibilities and the burden that's accomplished with that title. And I think they might be asking themselves, is it worth the while? Now, to back that, what I'm saying, I think there's an interesting research study done by Gallup. Now, Gallup is a research organization, and annually they share the State of the Global Workplace report. And that's mainly a report that's interested in the engagement levels of individuals as well as managers. And what we have seen in the latest report is that the engagement levels is down by 2 points. It used to be 23% of the workforce that was actively engaged, and that has dropped to 21%. Now, you can imagine if you're a team of 100 or a company of 100 employees, it's such a scary statistic to think that only 21 people of the 100 is actively engaged. Now, why I'm highlighting that statistic is if you have a look at people that's engaged, the sad part was to see that the employee level, or what they sometimes call the individual contributor level, that engagement level was the same. It stayed the same. There was no increase or decrease. But when you look at the job level of managers, that's where we saw a decrease. And I think that's sending a message or highlighting, giving a spotlight onto managers that's struggling. And I'm thinking that might be one of the reasons why the younger generation say, but that's not what I want to sign up for. If I have a title, but it goes hand in hand with so much more pressure and less support from the organization, that's not what I want to sign up for.
Is there something that can be done to try and make that look appealing? I work as a manager and I tend to leave my team in charge when I leave. I tend to give people responsibilities when I leave, and they actually have no appetite for it. They actually speak about that. Is there a way to try and change the way it's positioned? Because it doesn't feel to me as well that millennials find it attractive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you say what can be done, I think we first need to understand that when you look at the current role of managers, it almost seems as if they sandwich in between two layers. On the one side, they have the demands from the senior leadership and even the shareholders in the organization. And, that demands to take the strategy and make it happen, because that's what the managers are responsible for. And then on the other side, they have their teams that you need to look at the well-being of the teams. You need to make sure that they perform. And we do know that the demands of the world of work has changed. So the team members is also demanding more from their managers. So absolutely, we do need to look at how do you rethink the role of managers. And that can be different from each company or each industry. But I think the first thing that's highlighted here is that when we appoint people in a management role, how do we support them? How do we train them? And how do we coach them to be successful? Because I think you know yourself that there's so many disruptions in the workplace. The speed of change is so high. It's just getting faster and faster. If we look at, everything that's automated and AI coming into the picture, there's so much in demand. And I think that's why we need to look at how do we think of that role of middle manager.
I want to go back to the millennials and Gen Zs who are labeled job hoppers and being called not loyal. I think you've clearly cited that there's something else going on. I wonder if you could speak about the impact of an environment in terms of a lack of appeal. What I often also hear from young people is the compensation is simply not enough. Their value acknowledgement is also not enough, that they look for growth opportunities that might happen outside. Can you speak about the impact of the lack of growth, rather, in that perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Tshidi, what you've touched on is so important, because when we look at the younger generation, we know that they care deeply about impact. I'll get to that part of the growth just now, but when we look at them caring about the impact, is they want to know that the work that they do is meaningful. It's really understanding what is the contribution of the organization in their community or in the society that they're working, and knowing that the organization is not only focused on profit. So I think when we look at what is important for younger generations, it's really that autonomy, the flexibility, and as you highlighted, the growth for individuals. Now, when there's a manager or leader sitting listening to this talk, I think when we think of growth opportunities, a lot of the time people think we're talking about, take them away out of the office to go and attend some training program. And growth does not necessarily mean, go and attend a training program. That continuous growth is really being very intentional about how can we take ordinary day-to-day operations and moments and turn them into a growth opportunity. So there might be a challenge, just asking the right questions to understand how they will find the solution. So it's almost putting on the hat of a coaching management style versus directing and telling them what to do. But it's also about having conversations and be transparent about what does flexible career path, what can that look like? And what other alternatives are there for them to explore? So even if you think of lateral moves or understanding what is important for that individual, what are they passionate about, and see if there's not an opportunity to join a project where they can actually grow and build on that passion or natural skill strength that they might have. So there's so many different things. I think it starts with having that human-centric focus and understanding who's the team member or that young individual sitting in front of you and what's important for them and how you can then support their growth.
All right. Anja, I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to speak about all of this in the South African context where we have high unemployment and then you still have young people who feel restless in particular spaces. But let's take a quick break first.
702. World of Work.
We are having a conversation. We're in conversation with Anja van Beek, a talent and culture strategist, as well as a leadership and HR expert. She's also an executive coach. We're speaking about why is it that there seems to be a loss of appetite from young people to climb the corporate ladder. They say that it's on the wrong wall. She's also penned an interesting article, Anja van Beek, about this particular phenomenon, that it used to be a rite of passage and that you used to put in the hours, not at the right moments. One day you'd get the corner office, and that doesn't seem to be the aspiration any longer. I was asking earlier whether you are still interested in climbing the corporate ladder. Here's some of the voice notes. I'm going to come to Tabo and Midrand in just a bit.
Tshidi, I've been in one company for like 5 years now. This is the first time I actually stuck around for this long. 5 years awards, I got zero, nothing. Ne? So imagine if I stick around for like 20, 30 years to get what? 2,000. It doesn't make sense. And then the other things that each and every single year your increase is like 1,000 something, but it's very small. And then if I move from company A to company C, then company C gives me like 5,000 more. So why not move around up until I can push my salary? So it doesn't make sense. So I get it.
Hi, Tshidi, it's Mongezi in Joburg. I think on this question about growth of opportunity and income within a company, why is it that companies that people work for don't realize their current, call it potential, so that they don't have to hop from one company to the next, so that the growth is almost as rapid or as good as it would be if you were in the same company instead of hopping from one company to the next? What is it about companies and businesses and managers that makes them not realize the growth and potential in people while they are still there, only for somebody else in a different organization to realize it, in a different organization, because that's one of the reasons for people to move from one place to another. It's Mongezi.
Thank you so much for that, Mongezi. Thank you for the WhatsApps. Before I go to Tabo and Midrand, Anja, I want you to maybe weigh in on that. I mean, they're both in essence raising the same issue. You need to move to get more, even the financial incentives. You need to move to be seen, to grow. It happens a lot in the media industry where journalists believe you need to hop around to get your money's worth, your value in essence. Why is that the fact?
Yeah, I think it's the reality that when you in an organization, and unfortunately, I mean, if we have a look at the inflation rate, and usually businesses link the increases not necessarily to the inflation rate, but it's definitely taken into account. So there's only that amount of money available to, give increases or give bonuses. And an easy way to increase your salary is, like the first caller said, is to go to another organization, because then I can negotiate a different salary or a different package. And that is so sad, because I think it's costing the organization a lot when someone moves and you need to go through that whole recruitment process again. So I think that is the unfortunate reality of what we're facing. I don't think necessarily in South Africa only. But then, as the other caller said, is that the responsibility of the leadership team is to build an environment where people want to stay. And that is sometimes creating an environment that's more than just the money that you get. Because, I mean, if we have a look as a manager, I cannot motivate you. Motivation is intrinsically for each and everyone different, but I can create an environment where people want to learn and want to contribute. But yeah, that might be the challenging part, is that people don't know. I'm saying people, but the leaders at the organization is not interested in building or unlocking the potential. But that is the secret. That is why people or organizations are so successful, when they appoint people and allow them to bring their strengths and their talents and unlock that to thrive.
I want to bring Tabo in from Midrand. Tabo, you have a recruitment agency, and you also wanted to weigh in on this trend of millennials, Gen Zs, not interested in waiting it out and climbing the corporate ladder, but moving elsewhere.
Yes, thank you for having me, taking my call. Look, in the 15 plus years I've been in the recruitment industry, I have seen that with the advent of BE, with affirmative action, there's a lot of instability when it comes to trying to have people become professionals or staying long enough to earn the skills that they probably would be able to contribute towards their next employer or their current employer. But there's also a very serious socio-economic issue that is not being spoken of. There's the AI that is not being spoken of that is extremely worrying, given that AI in the next by 2030 there is going to be a serious displacement of skills, and a lot of skills are going to disappear, particularly white-collar positions. And as a result, those who do know what the future holds, people who have been following what AI has been, how the development of AI, actually understand this dilemma, and they do not want to find themselves wanting. So anyway, then there's the socio-economic issue whereby social media has not really done us justice in maintaining some of the things that we are so accustomed to. So with regards to people losing jobs and not being able to find jobs, a lot of people are starting to think that they can short the system by job hopping, and then most importantly, creating their own businesses. Because there's this pressure that you need to be flashy and have a nice car almost instantly. And it is those small issues that I actually think have just been ignored, given that we have a tsunami on the horizon.
All right, thank you so much, Taba in Midrand, warning of a tsunami. Anya, before you weigh in on that, I just want you to listen to this very, I think it's an important view about corporate culture in the country as well.
Tshidi, part of the issue with corporate South Africa is that what many people don't know is it's a very toxic environment. It's like a cappuccino, white on top, like a cappuccino, foamy, and then very dark at the bottom. And the top part doesn't care about the bottom. It's really about exploiting people as much as possible. And the workplace is extremely toxic. The day I decided to leave and pursue an international career was the best decision I ever made, because I was really being taken for granted in South Africa. And many leaders are so toxic. I don't even know how they got to those positions, because they have no idea how to lead, much less a country like South Africa.
Those are two very important sentiments. I have run out of time, Anya, but I want you to weigh in. Not even AI, we'll try to touch AI, but before that, the issue of the South African experience, the issue of inequality, the issues of purpose and mental well-being, and you gauge that versus the fact that we are a country with high unemployment, with the changing culture, and I suppose that's where AI fits into the conversation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I actually have to echo the words of the last caller, and talking about these toxic workplaces. Because if you have a look at the work environment where it's human-centric, then you will have conversations with your workers saying, you know what, these are the roles that might be absolute, as Tabu mentioned, in the next few years. These are the skills required, and as an organization, we invest to reskilling and upskilling our workforce, because we know they've been loyal. We know they stick with us for quite some time. So I think it's that whole question of, as a leadership, do you really invest in the skills building for the future? When you consider what roles might be impacted when we think of AI. And then on the other side is to take ownership of the culture. And I mean, if people talk about the culture in a toxic culture, I mean, that is so sad, but I think that's so the reality is that some leaders are just focused on the profit, and they're not focused on the individual and what is important to them. And I think that is where the conversation needs to start. Even Tabu mentioned the example of they just want the flashy cars. And it is as a mentor or as a coach in the business, it might be the manager, just having that conversation with a younger generation and see, but what is realistic? I mean, these dreams that you have, excellent, but what is a realistic achievement or expectation from your side? So I think for me, looking at this issue, it really starts with having the right conversation, having respect for each and everyone, because I mean, that is the beauty of South Africa, because we have such a diverse workforce and together making it work. Because otherwise, as Tabu said, that tsunami of AI, we will be caught off guard.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That's Anja van Beek, a leadership and HR expert, weighing in there on why young people are opting to not climb the corporate ladder.